All right, so I'm going to expose to you right now uh, why you cannot understand mental health anymore in universities, how you have to study by yourself to understand how it's going, because it's very compromised by capitalism, by industries, which is obvious. But I'm going to give you a correct presumption of it. I will not be tendentious about it, right? So let's talk about the first thing we need to do is to divide psychosis from neurosis. And it's not so clear anymore in our books because they've mixed it up. But we need to go back to the older version, which was extremely correct, which is psychosis and neurosis. Psychosis is a mental disease where you lost control of your ego. If I'm going to use Carl Jung's books and his theories and much others, but I'm going to give you this Jung point of view. So when you have it, a psychosis, you cannot control a lot of times yourself. You're just being like a hostage of your own mind. But what we are really interested in most society is about the neurosis, which is not a mental disease per se. It is actually a disturbance of mental health, which is a very distinct proposition, because you don't lose control of your ego. Of course, you have the borderline stuff, which can be from both sides. Like, for example, borderline, or for example, bipolar disorder can be a psychosis or a neurosis, depending on what are your symptoms, and if you actually lose control of your ego and you lose control of your attitudes in a very particular way, right? So when you talk about anxiety and depression, which is the most common kind of neurosis that we have, we have to talk about the SSRIs, and we're talking about the pills. We're talking about the medicine that we have disposable. And when you look at it, when you look at the scientific evidence, I have to tell you, when I've done this research a lot of times, and I've been looking for new evidence, new studies, and I have in research, and I have to tell you that you have 50% chance of it doing something good for you. And I'm being optimistic about 50%. But of this 50% of success, you can flip a coin and you'll discover if it's gonna be good or not for you. And you have a lot of options, of course, but it's an average of 50%. But of those 50%, you have an actual 13%, only 13% of empirical evidence that it's the pill, it's the formula that is making you better. And all the other percentage is a placebo effect, which is very, very important for us to understand. So I've analyzed more than 50,000 sessions. I have a psychological clinic in Brazil. And what I've learned is, in talking with people, which is very important, is there is a lot of suffering. It's not, a lot of times it's not fake. And it's hard for people that didn't have anxiety and depression to understand that, right? I'm not talking about the ADHD and autism. I can give you another video for that. And it can be, most of the time, it is not a psychosis, it's a neurosis, it's a way of living, it's a disturbance per se, but a lot of people suffer a lot from it, and they cannot do a lot of stuff, but they come from that, they go for that situation because they lack a lot of things, or they neglect a lot of things for a long period of time. So it's a very, very important stuff. But the SSRIs, it's a very difficult problem, because for myself, when I had like melancholy and a lot of symptoms that was not good, I looked for a psychiatrist, and they gave me like 2 or 3 different medication, and I didn't take it. I chose to treat myself without, and that was one of the best things I did, because I saw in my family, and I've seen that it's very, very hard for you to get out of it, because it changes your chemistry, your chemicals, your brain, your hardware, because we are talking about software problems. If we take this analogy that I do all the time, we're talking about the software, the mind, which is not very well discussed anymore, because we cannot even comprehend the symbolical level of mind anymore. But when we're talking about brain, we're talking about hardware, and people are changing the hardware because the software is wrong, and it's not a very good approach, because when you treat a mental disease or a mental disturbance as a disease, or like from other organs, it's not the same. It's not the same way, and people that are not very well educated on the subject thinks that you just take a pill and it will solve the problem, because it's a hardware problem. People cherish and people look for it like it's a hardware problem, please, because I don't want to confront the reality. And that's what's going on. And when you go to psychiatry, to a psychiatrist or a psychiatry studies, or a psychologist, you have a very, very hard propaganda, a very, very hard push on the medication subjects, and a lot of times they don't know what they're doing, and that's very, very bad for society, because we need to take care of your mind, not your brain, most of the time. When you have a psychosis, it's different, because it is actually a difference on your brain, on your chemicals, okay? Even then, it's another subject. I will not get into it, but even then you can treat them without medication, because they actually most of the times they like the way they are, and we are just trying to change. And that's a very good subject, because diseases nowadays are just things that it's not the most performative thing in a human being. So everything that's not the best of performance is a disease, and that's a problem, because a lot of times you don't need to be actually performative all the time. You don't need to be the best on the world. You can have your own characteristics and live with it. So that's what's going on. We're living in a time where we lost totally the symbolical level of our mind, and it's a huge problem, because we lived symbolically for a huge time, and we're living in a symbolical level, but we don't understand anymore. So it creates all these autistic evolution or revolution in our society. There's a lot of diagnoses which are completely terrible. This level 1 autism is ludicrous, and it's not good. It's not a good way. It's not a good approach, but it's capitalism, and you have to understand that you have an industry, you have shareholders. They want to increase their profit, so they have to do things. It's just business for them. It's very important for us to understand. And we have 3 types of people. We have the people that can manipulate, the manipulated people, manipulators, and you have the observers. And as observers, if you try to understand, you need to give some attention to it and try to wake people up in a certain way, because you're seeing what's going on. So that's the deal with the SSRIs. You cannot simply ignore it. There are cases which people get better. Those theories that it was based on were wrong. We know that, but we know as well that certain people it works, but it creates a dependency that's really hard to get back, because you need to change the way that you look into yourself and into your life, and that needs a development on your personality, which is the main reason for living, the main purpose of your life. depends on this personality development. And it's sad, but it's true. So that's the video that I want to make for people to try to understand a little bit better about this subject, which is a lot of people just demonizing everything, a lot of people just believing in everything, and the truth is mostly in the middle, where you understand what those people are saying, what those people are saying. You go pursuing the truth and you find it, and then you have to share it. So see you in our video.